SABC business editor Septermber ending that discussion. Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema has made his first trip to China after 2 years in office, after facing heavy criticism on his administration's seemingly pro-West foreign policy approach, an accusation he has refuted. Hichilema, who is accompanied by a team of ministers, is expected to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping to discuss matters of mutual interest, as well as explore what more the Southern African country can tap into from China regards to trade and investment. Our author, Arthur Davis Sukopo, our Zambia correspondent, gives us some expectations from his inaugural trip.
Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema has been facing criticism from opponents who have been seeing him to dwell more on the West, the US in particular, while his predecessor Edgar Lungu was seen to be more pro-China during his rule. However, Hichilema has been denying that fact, as expressed when responding to a question during a media briefing when U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Zambia in March this year.
When I'm in Washington, I'm not against Beijing. Equally, when I'm in Beijing, I'm not against Washington.
China has in the last dozen years, excluding the past 2 years of Hichilema, heavily supported Zambia through financial and material support, and infrastructure has been leading among those. Yusuf Dodia, a development expert, knows too well what contribution China has made to Zambia.
If you look at the amount of private sector investment in Zambia coming from outside on a broader level, it comes in from China. There's no Western or European investment in Zambia of that scale.
Andy Lengwe of Roma Foreign Affairs Institute agrees that indeed Zambia-China developments have slowed down in Hichilema's rule.
Has seemingly dwindled. We are no longer seeing the much construction by the Chinese or work being done by the Chinese as it were with the previous government.
Hichilema's main purpose to China is set to consolidate his administration's foreign policy agenda and enhance economic diplomacy as he meets his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. President Hakainde Hichilema and President Xi Jinping will oversee the signing of bilateral agreements and memorandum of understanding in various areas, including economic cooperation and investments. He is also expected to hold meetings with key policymakers, including the Chinese Premier, Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, and leaders of Shenzhen City, Jiangxi Province, and Fujian Province. Besides trade and investment, China holds a critical stake of Zambia's external borrowing, with a debt of $4.1 billion owed to the Export-Import Bank of China, or Exim Bank of China. President arrived China Sunday and is expected in Zambia on Saturday, 16th September. For Yusuf Dodia, a development expert, he expects debt matters to be key and hopes for either debt forgiving and complete write-off, or indeed, if that fails, then negotiates for interest freezing.
Should initially targeting debt write-off or forgive or cancel part of the debt. Of course, if we're unable to achieve that, we hope that the president will then focus on interest freezing or interest write-off.
Roma Foreign Relations Institute Executive Director Lengwe Walia shares similar thoughts on the debt aspect.
We would want to see that cancellation of the debt that we are owing the Chinese, and it's very possible, seeing that we've had a long-standing relation with the Chinese that has been built on mutual trust and indeed mutual benefit.
Another hope for the local experts is at least debt restructuring, like achieved with other creditors recently.
But the last result that we would be looking to get from the dialogue in China would be debt restructuring. As you will appreciate, the dialogue in France shifted the debt to a 25-year payment period, meaning that we have a breathing space of about 10 years ago. But hopefully in China, the results will be better.
Later, tourism promotion fora in Jiangxi Province and Beijing will be held, and the Zambian leader is said to interact with various captains of industry from China and those from Zambia based in China. Reporting for the SABC's Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I'm Arthur Davis, Scopo.
Independent energy expert Hichilema says there's a possibility that South Africa's power utility Eskom laying off some of its staff complement come as it struggles with cash flow issues. Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosi Nzorama has said the state-owned entity has received multiple offers from across the globe to finance the expansion and strengthening of the power grid. Hichilema says Eskom's financial crisis could be solved by an